Are we
Pete, it's me
now?
Oh, they can't hear me, Pete. Only you can hear me. Okay, you can hear me okay, right, Pete?
I can hear you okay. What are we doing? What is
I'm that little voice that lives in your head.
Oh, God.
You know, that we all sort of have. And when something small sort of goes wrong in your life, I just sort of immediately tell you how terrible you are and how terrible things will be moving forward.
What just happened is
What's that?
You just reprogrammed me a little bit, and now you really are the voice I'm going to hear in my head when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
This is the worst
it's
day
exciting.
of my life.
It's really weird that you're whispering back because you're the only one that can hear me. I'm not exactly sure. The inner critic, Pete. Now, I want to talk about this real quick. That jump from a small frustration to a huge criticism, another word that we've used before in this podcast is catastrophizing, as many therapists call it.
This podcast? Is that what we're doing?
This podcast? Did I say podcast?
And I have to call that
Bang
out.
Bang on. Point out. Oh, catastrophizing. Catastrophizing. Okay. It's a huge part of anxiety. Well, a reporter named Eva Racinos from Vice got an interesting suggestion from her therapist one day about this inner critic. Hear that inner voice and then give it a name.
Tom.
And give it a name. How easy. And give it a name you don't like.
Oh.
Here we go.
Tom.
To better explain this, how dare you? To better explain this, Elizabeth Cush, a Maryland-based licensed clinical counselor who works primarily with women dealing with anxiety, says that the naming of the inner critic helps patients take a step back and wonder if those things that you're saying to yourself are actually true. This reporter, the aforementioned Vice reporter, after initially naming the voice after her ex-boyfriend, but she said that was getting too confusing, she instead picked the word brain. And she wrote, quote, "Now every time I start to feel overwhelmed by negative thoughts, I say, all right, brain, calm down." And listen to this part. "It became like talking back to the thoughts in a patronizing way, with an eye roll instead of my full attention." Now, Alice Boyes, author of the Anxiety Toolkit, explains that without psychological distance, it's easy to assume that just having a thought makes it true. And this patronizing naming and addressing of your own anxiety as something apart from you can help create this psychological distance. Cush explains it won't completely take away your negative thoughts, but it can help you get enough perspective to think flexibly and choose your behaviors based on the situation. Also noting ignoring or yelling at the negative voice will only make it mad, meaning you mad, and it only just makes things worse. What do you think about that idea?
I think it's fantastic. And I've totally tuned you out because all I'm doing is trying to think, what am I going to name my brain?
That was 100% going to be my next question. Are you going to name your inner critic, Pete? No, you're not going to name it Pete. No. Are you going to name your inner critic, Pete?
No, it was going to be Tom, but that is going to get confusing. Yeah. You don't want it to be something like that. But I was thinking about... Then I was thinking about National Treasure Edward Herman, but I like him, and he's been nice to me in my dreams. Yeah. So that's not good. I don't know. And then there's like Ruprecht.
I was thinking about calling it something stinky at whatsthatsmell.net, our erstwhile email address that we are no longer using. We will have more information about that later in this episode.
All right, stinkies.
I was going back and forth between something stinky and whatsthatsmell.net. I was just going to be very, I'm going to be very winded talking to myself. And then I went to Hitler. And I was like, ugh, so overused. And then I went to Marshmallow Peeps because they are the Hitler of snacks. I don't know.
I actually think that this is many of those are super dangerous for you in particular, because I know you have a tendency to say things that should be in your inside voice to your outside voice.
What? I don't believe that.
Okay, you mean when I'm walking down the streets of Los Angeles?
when I'm in the middle of the supermarket and I'm like, Hitler, give me a break.
In the supermarket.
Pipe down, Hitler.
No thanks, Marshmallow Peeps.
Welcome to What's That Smell, a sometimes funny podcast about humans and their anxieties. I'm Tommy Metz III.
And I'm Pete Wright.
And every week, we each drag one of our deepest, darkest anxieties into the light to share it, learn about it,
and hopefully laugh about it with all of you.
Reach out and send us the story of your anxieties so we can talk about it, but you're not going to use that aforementioned horrific email address. Instead, you're going to go to whatsthatsmell.net, yep, our beautiful website, and right at the top, in the top right, there's this button that says, Pete, what does it say?
Submit your anxiety for the show.
Submit your anxiety for the show.
Just this morning, and now I don't even remember what it's called, but it's roughly that, and it's blue.
And it's very easy. It's very easy to click a box if you'd rather be anonymous, or if you'd rather us make up a name for you, or you can tell us your name, or you can send us, I don't know, cash. Anyways, tell us your anxiety, and we can discuss it and all learn and laugh about it with all of you.
Can I administrative note?
Absolutely.
So here's the thing that I learned this morning when I was doing all this work is that because of all of the under the hood work that I've been doing on and around the website and domain names, yeah, a lot. And some things got broken. And I didn't know they was broken, Tom. And one of those things was something stinky at whatsthatsmell.net. So any email that you may have tried to send us for the past couple of weeks, we didn't get it. So yeah, that's why we've been doing our own anxieties for a while. Because we're out of them for this season. We used them all up, and we don't have any new ones because I broke it. So please resubmit. And I'll tell you, you go to the website, whatsthatsmell.net, or you can even use something stinky at whatsthatsmell.net if you want to. Just go into your sent items and send it again. It'll get to us. And so I'm sorry about that. I'm real sorry. May your cups runneth over with joy.
And with that, I'll go first. Pete, there's something important for us to talk about this week. It involves something we glanced upon during our COVID sessions, now available to subscribers only. Go to whatsthatsmell.net to learn more. And it's something that involves a member of your family and a member of mine. And it's a listener submission. But to make things as convoluted as possible, the listener who brought this up wants you to read it before we talk about it. So right now, check your inbox. This is a listener submission from someone you know very well, but you've never actually met.
I now have an extraordinary anxiety. Oh, goodness. He's written me before. Dude, am I supposed to read this out loud?
Uh-huh.
Hi, Uncle Peter. Woof woof, just kidding. Hey, it's me, Puppy Machine Foster. My dad Tommy is asleep after drinking what he calls his night-night juice. And I wanted to say hi to you and hi to your son. I think his name is Gizmo or Gimlet or something.
I assume he's talking about your dog, Gimlet.
I do too. He doesn't know people. Yeah, I get it.
No.
Dad Tommy is home all the time, and it's great. But when he leaves, it's even harder. And sometimes I shake a lot for no reason, and I think the squirrels are making fun of me. One morning, my dad went out, and I chewed on the door, and it was funny. And when he got home, he seemed mad, and I have no idea why. Dad Tommy walks to his desk window a lot, and it makes me crazy. What's going on? I feel anxious sometimes. Okay, bye, Foster.
Okay. Well, obviously, my dog has learned how to type, and that is why I found my laptop under my bed this morning. So that was from my dog, the aforementioned Puppy Machine Foster. This week's listener submission is pet anxiety during a pandemic. And before I ask you about your pup Gambit, I wanted to clarify some of the things that Foster just wrote about.
Okay.
I don't have a 9-to-5 job, so COVID hasn't changed Foster's life quite as drastically as other pets, but we're still spending much more time together. And it's been great. But I've been definitely noticing some chinks in the armor. When I was taking my aforementioned sociology course, I'd always take Foster and some of my schoolwork reading outside to the park across the street from my apartment so Foster could be outside and look at stuff. It's more fun than inside. And he really loved it. But invariably, every time he chose one random person each time to lose his mind barking at, straining at his leash, just rage out of like the 5 or 6 different people that would walk by. And on walks, there's always one random dog, different every time, that he loses his mind over. And I worry about his separation anxiety, which has never been great, but he gets super shaky now when he's trying to decide if I'm leaving for part of the day. And if I'm only gone for 40 minutes, he loses his mind with happiness when I come back. Oh, and yes. About 2 weeks ago, I went on a walk like I do almost every day. And when I got back, he'd never done this before. I saw he'd either chewed or clawed the door a bit. And there was paint all over the ground. He's never done that before. Oh, and then did he say that I talked to my desk window? Or walk to my desk window. He's talking about Zoom. I'm on
the
Zoom
desk window.
all the time.
No, I'm glad you cleared that up.
And if you even noticed when we started the live stream before we started this, he immediately jumped off his chair, ran into the other room, ran into this room, grabbed things, came over here, and then finally got on his chair and fell asleep like he normally is.
Yeah.
Because I think most people believe I had him stuffed a long time ago. He does that every single time. So yeah, I'm worried about what this is doing to him, what this pandemic's, and what will happen when things eventually go back to normal. Spoiler alert, I looked online. I am not alone. But now I would like to check in with you. How's Gambit?
Oh, Gambit. He's fine. I mean, I told you, he's a terrible intern. He's not timely on responding to email. He also, see, here's the problem. Gambit, like you describe all of those behaviors that Foster's going through, and that is very similar to Gambit. And also, Gambit, I think, is a racist. And
oh, no.
That's horrible. He also hates other men with dark beards.
Oh, no.
The people he chooses to bark at are embarrassingly, not generic white people like me. And it makes me so...
Oh, God.
It's just horrifying.
But that's not a pandemic thing. That you're just talking about in
it's
general.
Just all the time.
I'm talking about
But it
changes.
makes the pandemic stuff hard to discern. Do you know what I mean? When he's already crazy.
Got it. You don't know. It's just sort of,
right.
It's in a pandemic or it's Thursday.
Yeah, no. So I know that those things, I honestly don't know because there are 4 of us in the house. So there's no time when one of us isn't here. Right. Even if I go on a walk, there's somebody else keeping. Who knows what crazy shenanigans he undertakes when everybody's gone? I have no idea. I don't know how we're going to transition back to this, to a schedule.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, and I wanted to share some things that I found across the internet about this. First of all, starting with what's going on in their puppy and cat brains. I'm not talking about fish because fish, I feel like, always live in a pandemic.
Yeah, right.
They've been social distancing before social
literally
distancing
in a bubble.
was cool. Yeah. A professor named Zenithson Ning, a professor of animal clinical sciences at University of Tennessee, brought up that the same thing you just did. One possibility that we are noticing strange behavior is because we're at home more, and maybe our pets are super strange when we're gone, and it's always existed. We just never noticed. That's one possibility. Everyone else has some wider thoughts. Pete, last week you talked about empathy in the podcast. There is a thing called emotional contagion. Pets might be internalizing some of the anxious signals that their owners, us, are sending out. We're concerned about our health, our jobs, loved ones, rent payments, all of that. We're broadcasting those feelings, and they are really able to tell that, according to a paper published in January from Fabricio Caballo, an animal cognition researcher of the University of El Salvador. Oops, that the way I said his name immediately became racist. Let's keep moving. Dogs experience higher levels of anxiety when their owners are reeling from stress. A 2019 study in the UK found a similar pattern in cats. When you're stressed out, cats will pick up on it. And actually, cats especially don't handle change or stress well. Other things that are happening with dogs and cats, displacement behaviors. Displacement behaviors are the tics that pets adopt to cope with new stressors. In dogs and cats, these may present as mounting, pacing, vocalizing, scratching, or pattern behaviors like spinning or running from room to room. That's what my dog does every time I'm on Zoom. It's the same way that humans may play with our hair, pace in a circle, or chew our fingernails. This one was interesting because I've been trying to figure out how to monetize Foster's yawns, because he yawns 900,000 times a day. Yeah. One displacement behavior, yawning, turns up in cats, dogs, reptiles, and birds under duress.
And people.
Several studies have concluded that humans, too, yawn more often when they're nervous, although the reason why is a bit opaque. One leading theory is that yawning increases blood circulation, funneling air into the body and cooling the brain ever so slightly. Oh, didn't know that, did you? And finally, for Zoom, Gwen Palduca, a certified professional dog trainer, posits that in video conference calls, we tend to be fairly engaged. Your dog may be responding to your tone and energy on the call and could be getting excited or frustrated that you're engaging with a silly screen instead of them. So that's a possibility, that they sort of barely hear the voices that we hear. They maybe hear some sort of flashes on the screen that they cannot smell. And, you know, I do the podcast sitting on a ball, so I'm already a mess. And so I think maybe he doesn't know, Foster doesn't understand what's going on, but it either initiates, why aren't you paying attention to me? Or is this a game? Tag, you're it, or something like that. Does Gambit ever go weird about Zoom?
I don't think so, no, because he's pretty chill when we're like, if I'm on a Zoom and I'm sitting on the couch and I have the computer in front of me, or, you know, in my office here standing up, he is pretty chill about that. When does he go crazy? He goes crazy when we leave and come home. He also is, maybe this is it, he is super attuned to emergency services personnel. And if he can hear even the faintest siren, he will bay at the sky like a wolf.
Because he wants to go help.
Yeah, he's calling the troops. He's like a dispatcher, some sort of a canine dispatcher. And he'll just, and we have video of him just going crazy.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah.
And is this a new thing, or is this something he's always done?
He's always done it, but he's done it more now.
Got it. And it's probably, as horrible as it is, there's maybe more emergencies.
There's more emergencies,
out and around.
That's accurate. So I don't know. I mean, I know that he's under stress. He's also been humping like crazy. Is Foster a humper?
No.
Oh yeah, no. Gambit will come up and he'll just be like, "Hey, how that shoulder be doing right now?"
What?
Like, yeah, he'll try and get right on your arm.
And he humps your shoulder?
Oh yeah, he'll try to get. I mean, I don't let him. Tom, the way you say it makes it sound like I'm somehow enabling this behavior. I'm not doing that.
Why? Wait, what's behind you? I can see there's something labeled the humping couch. Pete, you're an enabler. Pete, there's a fan and a cigar next to it.
I'm just saying that from time to time, when he is stressed out, he likes to relieve the pressure, so to speak, and he'll do that to a person. He when he gets excited, and we do not let that happen. It stops it immediately. But it's one of those like untrainable behaviors. Sure. I say untrainable. I'm sure people are going to write and say, we really haven't tried to train him. And the answer is yes.
It's like trying to get a dog to sit. Yeah, I think we kind of know what we're doing.
We get it. I'm going to say it's untrainable, and we're just all going to nod and wink and go on about our day.
Okay. So what to do about this stuff? And I'm hoping some of our listeners, I assume, have some pets, and maybe some of this will be a little bit helpful. What to do? In general, our pets respond best to calm, patient, and confident attitudes in their human companions. We can best help our pets by maintaining a healthy routine and taking care of our own mental and physical health, because if we're happy, they're happy. That's a big part of it. Now, for separation anxiety, first of all, here's what I found. This term separation anxiety is a bit of misnomer. It's actually frustration. This is a quote, when we get stressed, we become inconsistent in our behavior. When we become inconsistent in our behavior, it becomes harder for our dogs or cats to be able to predict us, Mills says. Mills? Uh-oh. Who's Mills? Uh-oh. This is when copy pasting goes wrong. Mills, I'm so sorry. Let's make up an identity for Mills. Dr. Mills from the West Flamingo Animal Hospital to the Stars says, quote, that is stressful for the dog. It's not about fear. It's about confusion and frustration. Mills, we never knew you, but thank you so much for that wonderful quote.
Incredible contribution to the body of knowledge.
Yeah. But here's something that never occurred to me, because as much as possible, especially because in California right now, it is our version of cool outside. It's under 60, which is freezing. Oh my God. And as a result, I've been taking Foster around with me in the car when I do go on errands. I've been keeping him around with me all the time, because he's the happiest when he learns I'm leaving and I'm bringing him. Mm-hmm. He jumps higher than the Christmas tree. He's crazy. But this is something that a Dr. Christopher Yock says, that owners should avoid bringing their pets with them on errands, and even go spend time outdoors without them.
What?
This is in order to ease the transition of when things eventually do go back to normal. That if we spend all of our time and every time we leave, we're always bringing our dogs just because we can, that when things go back to normal, they're going to hit a brick wall of separation frustration.
All right.
And that's going to be really tough.
Yeah, it sounds like this Dr. Who's a Pants and dogs have forgotten why we have them. Like
drug mules.
Okay, let me just tell you as an aside, Gambit's a rescue dog, and that is our headcanon for what happened to him before. He was actually from Texas, and he was brought to a foster. But my wife and I both have this story in our heads that he was a drug mule, and that they were, shoving condoms of cocaine where it was, and little saddlebags of makeup to test on other animals. And we have this, that we rescued him from an incredibly terrible life. And so you say drug mule, I say nailed it.
Yeah,
that's why we rescue dogs.
That's why you have like a portion of your day just set aside for humping, because you're trying to help him as best you can.
I love having him with me all the time is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's great. And
I get it.
Driving around with him is awesome. Like, that's one of the reasons we got a companion like this, because he's so flexible.
I get it, but Dr. Yak says that you might be setting up for but I mean, you and I are in different positions. We don't have out of the house 9 to 5. So I think we're okay.
Oh, we're okay. For other good.
You and I are okay. It's all these other miserable bastards. No, it's all these other people that more than one doctor that I found does say that do spend some time each day. If you haven't been, leave your dog at home. Even if you're just going outside and going on a walk you don't need or something, just to ease that so that's a little bit normal. Give them a treat when you leave, give them a treat when you come back, and then that will sort of change into going back to normal. This is just one little side thing that I found. This isn't the first time that pets have weathered a pandemic lockdown, of course. During the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, pet owners actually had to put face masks on their cats and dogs, a physical representation that pets were struggling with the outbreak just as much as people were. Said one pet owner, quoted in the Seattle Star in 1918, "She has made the best of it in good spirit, as we all have, while masking a 5-year-old bulldog named Stant." Because we didn't know how to name dogs yet. So it was just like, I don't know, Stant. I don't know. Send him out to the fields. Yeah, exactly. And then Stant immediately is like, goes down into a mine.
My name is Jeffrey.
Yeah. So we've been through this before. And Stan's doing great. Stan came back.
Stan's amazing. I like that. You should spend some time away from your pets. They give the same advice about young children too. Should definitely leave them.
Oh no, Pete.
Yeah.
Oh, you're reading the wrong articles.
I hear that. Yeah.
Oh, are you reading your own blog again? Oh no.
Alf and Dag Lundvik are the Swedish father and son team behind Fagerdala World Foams. They make polyurethane materials for mattresses and cushions and have been doing it since the early 60s. But it wasn't until NASA unleashed their long successful viscoelastic polyurethane foam, or low-resilience polyurethane foam, 20 years later that the company was able to lock in on a technology that would drive a product market to an over $8.5 trillion valuation. We're talking, of course, about memory foam. NASA came up with it as a way to improve safety of aircraft cushions. Long periods in memory foam seats offer improved circulation. Fagerdala took the foam and made the first Tempur-Pedic Swedish mattress with it. It was still hard to work with the chemicals required to make the stuff, but the medical industry jumped aboard with demand for memory foam exam tables and pillows and beds. And then your grandparents probably bought one for the guest room, where you likely hated it. That's okay, though. The market flourished, and the foams have gotten better. Today, it bounces back better than ever, and with aloe and green tea extract and activated charcoal in the foam, they can even give you a solid aromatherapy treatment as you sleep. That might be your experience when you choose to support the show by becoming a Panic Pal. Like the astronauts of old, podcasts need that carefully crafted viscoelastic monetary support to be successful. When you become a Panic Pal, you know your support is going to our ragtag team of podcasters to ensure hosting and production is uninterrupted for Season 5. No pesky repeating fees here, though. For a one-time contribution of $35, you're supporting this 12-episode season of What's That Smell? Anxiety goodness. Plus, we'll send you a sticker. Visit whatsthatsmell.net and become a Panic Pal today. Tom, I watched the most amazing video last night that has completely changed the conversation I wanted to have with you today.
Oh, boy. Okay. Tell me.
All right. Well, it starts like this. Sports, sports, sports. Tom, knowing the athlete you are today, I imagine you, like me, were always picked first for playground games. Is that true? Do you remember?
Never.
Let's talk about that a little bit, just for a minute. Like, what's your sense memory? If we were doing a visualizing experience, it would be you kind of walking me through what it's like to go out for recess, say 4th grade, 5th grade, and figure out what you're going to do with the playground games.
Well, a lot of it also came up during gym.
Yeah.
Too. I would just always know that I would be like the last person picked. If I was trying to be in a thing. And it would always, and then depending on the niceness of the kid, they'd either be like, all right, I'll take Tom. Yeah. Or they'd say something like, oh, good, I get Tom. And I'd be like,
we both know that you don't mean that. Yeah.
And this actually can go, this has followed me throughout my life. Friend of the show, Nicole and Jason Small, during their wedding, at one point before the wedding, sorry, not during their wedding weekend. So I would have been, what?
Is that how they got married? They picked 35. Each other last on a dodgeball team?
No, but we were all staying at a big hotel with a really big lawn, and all of the wedding guests and stuff, because we were all friends, played a huge game of kickball. Just for fun, as an activity for one of the days. And friend of the show, Thomas T. Threats, at one point went up to there were some legitimate children on the other team, Jason's son, Darnell's son, and he went up to them. I was in the far right field, and he kept telling them, kick it towards him, pointing at me. Because they knew that the chance that I would have in catching it or throwing it back was so sad. God. He was opposite Babe Ruthing. He was telling them,
call your
kick
fail.
It towards him. And I was like, I'm in my 30s. All right. Does that help answer your question? Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent.
Oh, no, that's exactly the kind of meat that we need for the grist for the mill today, Tom. I'm with you. I was never one of those. Never for dodgeball or kickball or basketball or kick the can or anything. Mm-hmm. And so, we did have a rousing continuous game of railroad tie tag on the playground. Not familiar. Well, it's tag, but you can't step off the railroad tie. It's like a combination of the floor is lava and tag, because we had a bunch of railroad ties. It was like isolating everything. There were railroad ties, and you could walk around them, and then inside the railroad ties was like sand, and then a slide, and then sand, and then
Why are there railroad ties in your playground?
Oh, it's just they were everywhere. But I am actually surprised, you being a Coloradan as well, that you didn't have a boatload of railroad ties everywhere. Ties.
What's a railroad tie?
What? The railroad ties. So there are the rails on a railroad.
Stop just saying railroad ties.
I'm going to just say it again until you get it. There are the rails that the train sits on, and underneath the rails...
The little boards?
The boards, yeah, but they don't call them little boards. Guess what they're called?
Context clues, railroad ties. Why are they I don't... Okay, go on.
So they're thick. They're like a foot square, right? These giant, and they last forever. They're super, like, poison sealed and oiled up, and so they stack and then nail them in, and then they become like raised beds for playground equipment and sidewalks and things. Yeah, and Colorado Springs is just their cup runneth over. Speaking of, with railroad ties, just all railroad ties all the time.
Is that your anxiety this week? Is the amount of railroad ties?
It's railroad ties. No, guys, this has been such a sidetrack. I don't even remember what my anxiety is. So the thing about tag is that it was the only thing that I felt like I could, even just if I started not it, I could kind of hold my own. I could hide. I could stay out of the way.
Not it. Okay.
Yeah. As long as I was an evader or someone to evade, then I was okay. And once I'm it, that's like being called last at dodgeball, right? Once you're it and you're not very fast and not terribly coordinated,
because you're just going to be
you're just it forever.
You come in from recess with a big white beard.
Yeah. No, it's totally it. I looked like this. So this is the video I watched last night. Was something that elevated tag to something beautiful and horrific all at the same time. Have you heard of World Chase Tag, Tom?
No.
This is also not my anxiety.
Okay.
Christian DeVoe and Damien DeVoe are brothers, and they played a lot of tag when they were young in their backyard garden in Windsor, UK, and they played so much tag, and they elevated their backyard tag game to the point that it became sponsored by CBS Sports Network. That's right.
Really?
Professional tag.
Cool.
Professional tag. And it takes place in an arena with all kinds of playground obstacles, and it's one-on-one. There is a chaser and an evader.
I have seen this, and they're like parkouring like through a bunch of pipes and going over things. And I have seen that.
It's amazing. And you said it, right? Parkour athletes are the athletes that like leveled up parkour by making it tag. And this was the thing that I thought was so fascinating. They, one of the athletes said, like when we're training for parkour, you get the YouTube videos and things, and those, like, people don't know, those take days to figure out and practice and test. Like there is nothing that isn't rehearsed, test, practiced, failed a million times before you get it right. Right?
Yep.
No doubt.
Parkour.
This is improvisational parkour. That's what this is, because there are no planned routes, right? You just train the skills and hope they come to you when you need them. And so you get these athletes that are at the very top of their physical game, and they take tag to a completely new level. And I'll put the link to this. That Vox did an amazing 18-minute a story on the brothers and some of the people who are on the tag teams, and it is fantastic and it's amazing. It's not really the thing I want to talk about. It's amazing. Tag, like playground tag, it's become this professional sport. The arena quad is amazing. Everything is great. It fills me with anxiety that I realize has been hanging around since we last talked about your return to pandemic normal anxiety 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Right? It takes me back to the neighborhood and then the suburbs and hoping that I would be picked by the Marzavis kids or the weird kids who lived across the street from my house who snorted Jell-O because they were jealous of their parents' cocaine. That's real. Everybody knew it. And it turns out that this frustration and this pain, this social rejection, it might have actually been good for me. I want to talk about what has happened in our lives as a result of the absence of play.
Oh,
I know, right?
Absence of play.
Twisty.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it's important that we start with the stories of us as kids, right? Even though it's not related to, neither of us are professional athletes, but those play.
I wouldn't call myself just a dabbler.
That's when we're doing, even when we're having a crappy day on the playground, we're learning some really important lessons. According to the article of American Journal of Play, which is totally a thing at journalofplay.org, it is the first peer-reviewed journal dedicated to the study of play.
Is that who publishes Highlights magazine?
I don't believe so, but that would be great.
Yeah,
what a punchline.
Okay.
The research has come to the conclusion that our early playtime, the good and the bad, is critical for our emotional and social development. They describe the kind of unstructured, quote, unstructured, freely chosen play as a testing ground for life. It provides critical life experiences without which young children cannot develop into confident and competent adults like you. The article is talking about this like halcyon call for revisiting how we handle play in schools because we're losing childhood playtime, right? Childhood free time.
We are? You mean in general or because of the pandemic?
No, in general.
Oh, no.
It'll all come back around. In general, researchers found that compared to 1981, children in 1997, they did this long study, and I've only just now gotten to the data, apparently. In 1997, spent less time in play and had less free time. They had 18% more time in school, 145% more time doing schoolwork, and 168% more time shopping with their parents. Researchers found that including computer play, children in 97 spent only about 11 hours per week at play. And when asked to compare their own memories of play as children, mothers specifically responded that they restrict their own children's playtime more than they had as kids because, and now we're going to play Family Feud, what do you think the number one reason mothers restrict their child's unrestricted playtime outside is, Tom?
Spite.
No.
It's not spite?
It's not spite.
Oh, okay.
You want another one?
Stranger danger?
Stranger danger. Number one, child predators.
Ugh.
Yeah, child predators. Number two, road traffic. And number three, bullies.
Oh.
Those are the top three reasons that mothers, when interviewed about why they don't let their children play outside alone, will actually that they don't do it. And that's one of the things that they said is different from when they were the kids themselves. Like, that's one of the things they brought out of their free-ranging childhood was, don't let my children play outside alone.
I don't like it.
I don't know about you, but my neighborhood growing up was just like, it was all playtime. It was all go outside and do things that were crazy and swing on ropes.
And so many child predators.
God, the child predators. My journal at home is just like...
It was always just child predators and railroad ties.
Yep.
As far as the eye can see.
So this is a call to like bring recess back, to like give kids more of an opportunity to play. Cut to, Tom, pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned a few weeks ago, you talked about the fear of not being able to return to work because you're a COVID shut-in that sings to his robot dog with impunity. I think that's how it went.
All of that is a legend. I can neither confirm nor deny any of those things.
It's funny. It turns out you might have been onto something with that.
Oh.
So when you look at the things that play does for kids, you can actually transpose exactly what play does for adults and where we are suffering thanks to it, right?
Okay.
Play gives you a chance to find and develop a connection to your own self-identified and self-guided interests. Right? When you're outside playing, when you're playing with others,
it's unstructured.
It's unstructured. You develop your own interests. Two, play allows you to learn how to make decisions and solve problems and exert self-control and follow, learn where there are rules to be followed and where there are, places where you can forge your own path. So, right, all of those things, good for kids, good for people. With play, you learn to handle your emotions in what is largely a safer environment, including anger and fear, right? Things that you're scared of when you're doing it outside, when you're doing it with a group of your peers, even when you're disappointed and sad, you're learning how to process in a way that...
Because the stakes are lower.
Yeah.
It's still just play. Right. I get it. Okay.
Play helps you make friends and learn to get along with each other as equals, as peers, right? This is one of the great challenges we're dealing with right now. And one of the questions that you brought up last week, all of these things, will I remember how to do them?
Right.
When I get back to work? Because I don't have any consistent experience. And unlike memory foam, I'm feeling less resilient than I've ever felt.
Nice tie-in.
Most importantly, say researchers, play is a source of happiness. And I don't know how many people you talk to when you're zooming around, but I don't know a lot of people who say they're genuinely happy now.
During the pandemic?
When compared to, let's say, a year ago.
Sure.
Research says not only have we taken away the joy of play, we've replaced it with stress around almost every corner.
Yay!
Yeah. So now
That's
we've been
the brain's
out of our
playground,
right. Now we've been out of our offices, away from our friends and colleagues so long that returning to work is becoming one of those stresses, right? Even in an office building, you can still be picked last on a team. Even in an office building, you can still lose connection to your own interests. You still have to handle your emotions, including anger and fear. You still have to make friends and get along with each other, and you still have to find a source of happiness. So they've outlined kind of where work stress, like return to work stress, is coming from, and the number one is I'm not up to speed. Like, I've been doing my best to be at home and to prepare and to constantly be online, and I do all the Zoom meetings, but when I get back to the office, I am just sure that I'm not going to be up to speed with what is I perceive to have been going on without me in these last things. I am incredibly anxious about seeing people for the first time in months. There are so many social norms we don't know what to do with. Like, do I bump elbows? Is that a thing? Or do we just go straight back to open mouth kissing? I just don't know. There is continued fear around the virus. Who's vaccinated? Who's not? How do we know? How do we ask? Right? And
it's another household. It's a zillion households.
Totally.
That now you're a part of.
As we learned last week, if you're empathetic at all, if you are living with anxiety, you're probably empathetic, and that means you are a sponge for the anxiety of others. And so guidance is talk about it. Talk openly about the concerns. Discuss safety precautions at length. Understand what your organization is doing to keep you safe. But number one, most of all, get back out there. If you've checked all the health and safety boxes, and all you're left with is the social anxiety stuff, go back to work. Get back to work and know that everybody is struggling with the same thing that you are. Everybody is worried about not being up to speed because they've all been doing the same thing you've been doing, right? They've all been doing these things. And so the number one thing you can do is get back up on that railroad tie and play that game of tag.
Is everyone as worried as I am of walking outside and stepping on your own hair and falling over because they haven't gotten a dumb haircut since March? Because I'm terrified, like the wind's going to blow it into the wheels of a truck. And I'll be like, oh no! And I'll just fly away.
Totally, there's precedent. I hear that's how Danny Bonaducci ate it.
Oh no!
That's not true. Danny Bonaducci's fine.
I don't know who that is. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode. This week's tune is Life Hacks by Fast Sounds.
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Tommy Metz III. Thank you for downloading. We will be back next week on What's That Smell?